Hello, I'm Kiran Arora. I'm Senior Data Manager at Rutgers DOMC. In this video, I will be covering part 2 of Freezer Pro training. I will be using FEN-TB adult and non-PED-FEN studies as examples for this training purposes. So in this video, I will be covering these topics. First, I will discuss overview of Freezer Pro platform part 2. I have covered part 1 of the overview of Freezer Pro platform in a previous video regarding printing labels from Freezer Pro. In this video, I will emphasize on the database section. And then I will cover SOP of sample management on Freezer Pro. So this video should really be used in conjunction with written SOP and instructions from the DOMC staff. So in terms of SOP, I will be covering flow of virtual samples on Freezer Pro. And then I'll cover what the biorepository staff will do with virtual samples on Freezer Pro once they receive physical samples of participants in their lab. And in the end, I will also share how to add samples or aliquots of sample types for which labels are not pre-printed. For example, in the FEN-TB adult study, we are not pre-printing labels for MTB isolate or NTM isolate. And for non-PED-FEN study, we are not pre-printing labels for MTB isolates or NTM isolates for gastric aspirate, as well as nasopharyngeal aspirates. The reason that we are not pre-printing labels for these ones is we are not expecting a lot of patients to have these samples. So it'll be a waste of the labels to print, 1,200 labels for different participants when we are only expecting 20 of these labels per study. So I don't know exactly how many we will receive, we will get per study, but this is just the reasoning behind not pre-printing labels for these sample types. All right, now I'm going to switch my screen to the Freezer Pro platform. So as you have seen in the previous video as well, this is the platform for Freezer Pro software. When you log in, this is the screen you see. This is the home screen. And they also have user guide over here. If you have any questions regarding how to use Freezer Pro or different functions of Freezer Pro, you can check this out. You can also contact the DOMC staff and we'll be happy to help you and provide any support you need. In the last video, I have gone over different Freezer groups that are in bold, and within that we have freezers, either virtual freezers like label printing station or shipment station that doesn't correspond to an actual freezer in the lab. For example, here's another shipment station virtual space, or the physical freezers over here. So these are again virtual freezers on Freezer Pro, but there is a corresponding physical freezer that is of the same name in different sites. And I also went over in the setting and preferences barcode printers, which for our studies we'll really be using these as the printing templates, and you will be using, for example, for nasal swabs or for non-PED-FEN study, you'll be using this template to print, and for saliva isolate and all of these other samples for FEN-TB, you'll be FEN-TB adult, you'll be using this printing template. So we went over these details in the last video. And one more thing I would like to point out is there's a small arrow mark over here that would hide the left bar, and it'll give you more working or visual space to work with the samples if you need. And you can get back to the other menu on the left by clicking on this arrow mark again. All right, so I'm gonna now discuss some details about the database. So let's open a box first. When you click on an empty well, you see different types of samples that are available to you. So the teams that are working on just the FEND adult study, for example, South Africa currently does not work with NOD study samples. They will only be able to see the samples that are specific to the FEND-TB adult protocol. So the icons, if you bring the cursors on top of these different icons, you will be able to see what the sample type is and which study it belongs to. The way that I have set up the samples, all the circular ones over here belong to FEND-TB adult protocol, and all of these bottle ones, vials, or these tube icons belong to non-PED-FEND study. All right. And another thing is all of these samples are organized based alphabetically based on their name. So, the first one is dried blood spot for NOD. Then comes the gastric aspirate palate for NOD. These ones from here, MTB isolate for FEND-TB adult till here, which is NTM isolate nasopharyngeal aspirate for NOD PED study. All of these are basically different isolate sample types. For NOD, we have separated these ones for nasopharyngeal aspirate NTM, nasopharyngeal aspirate, MTB isolate, and then also similarly gastric aspirate NTM and gastric aspirate MTB isolates. Then we have nasal cells, we have nasal swabs, nasopharyngeal palate, oral swabs. These two are plasma samples. This is for FEND-TB adult, and this is for NOD PED-FEND. These two are saliva. Again, this is for the adult protocol, and this is for the PEDs. These two are serums. And then we have sputum palate and raw sputum for adult. And then we have stool for NOD, upper airway swabs for adult, urine samples for adult protocol as well as for NOD. And then again, the PAX-gene RNA tube samples for adult protocol and then for PEDs. So these are the different sample types that you will see that are available to you. And in terms of the contents of database, I'm going to use Uganda freezers, for example. So in terms of contents of the database, FreezerPro has standard fields and user-defined fields. And the standard fields are the ones that the DOMC staff doesn't have control over. These are standard fields that comes with the FreezerPro software. And the user-defined fields are chosen by the DOMC staff for a particular study. And I'm going to double click on one of the samples to show you what it looks like. So standard fields over here are shown here, and they also appear on the top here. And then the user-defined fields that are picked by the DOMC staff are here. When you double click on the sample, this is how you see it, and you can edit it. And then they appear below this blue line on the home page when you click on the sample. And in terms of the content of the different standard fields and what appears on the home page. So first of all, on the right side on the top, when you just basically single click on a sample, these are the things that you see. So I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to show you over here what each field means. So over here, you first see the name of the sample, which is here as well. For the NOD study, the name of the sample includes PID, which is this part. And then it also includes visit information, on which visit the sample was collected, and then sample name. So that's basically overall name of the sample. Then for some of the sample types that are stored in different aliquots, you would see an aliquot ID as well, which is just name of the sample, which is same as here. Plus you'll see a dash and single digit. And then that dash and single digit would just, give information about the aliquot ID. So that will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on the number of aliquots that are used to store the sample. You'll also see PID, which I already explained is part of the sample name as well. And then description is something that you can change. So over here, there is description that you can change. You also see sample type, which I also showed in the previous window, where when you bring the cursor on top of any of the sample icon, you see the sample type. So this is plasma sample type for NOD-PED studies. And you see position information, the barcode ID and RFID tag. These are unique identifiers that are auto-generated by the Freezer Pro. And when initially DOMC staff uploads the virtual samples in the label printing stations, we just basically do that to print the labels that doesn't have any volume information. And even we don't know what volume of sample we will have once the participant, once you receive a, actual sample from the participant. So initially it is 0. And once you receive the sample in the lab, you will be updating this information. And in terms of other contents of the database, if you double click on any of the sample type, you'll be able to see it is some standard fields and then some user-defined fields, including PID, aliquot ID, which is completed by DOMC staff, and then initial volume, unit of initial volume, which is a drop-down menu, in microliters or milliliters. You can respond to this question. Then there will be freeze date. Either you can enter it directly over here, or you can choose this calendar icon over here and choose a date from here, and you can also enter today. Just remember the format will be month, day, year. Like this is the format: 4-digit year, 2-digit day, and 2-digit month. And when you see an underline on any of the variables or user-defined fields, that means that the DOMC staff has some directions as to how to complete this field. And then if you just bring the cursor on top of it, you don't have to click anywhere. It just says the initial. So just enter 2 digits initials in this area. And then also, if it's not mandatory, if you have any comments for the data managers at DOMC or your own lab, you can write some comments over here. So again, all the user-defined fields are going to appear in this order over here, and all of the standard fields are shown over here. The description will go in this parenthesis over here. Okay, I'm gonna close that. So this was an example of a sample type which has been aliquoted as well. And then I'm gonna also show you example of a sample type which is not, divided into further aliquots. So for example, urine over here has 7 aliquots per PID, but the RNA, PAXgene RNA tube is not aliquoted. So you see that there is no aliquot ID. I'm gonna close this off. So that's basically just the overview of the database, what's included, and also what sort of sample types you have access to and how to figure out which one is which over here. Now I'm going to go over just flow of samples, virtual samples on Freezer Pro from beginning to end. Some of this information we already covered in our previous video as well, but we went into a lot more detail. In this video, I'm just going to give you a general, zoomed out version of the flow of samples on Freezer Pro. So initially, the DOMC staff creates these label printing station, which is just a virtual storage space for each study type and clinic. And also in case of non-PED-FEND study for healthy control, we're going to have a separate printing station compared to symptomatic arm labels. All right, so if you click on this gray arrow, you'll be able to see the contents of the of this freezer or this virtual freezer. So there are 2 subdivisions within it, which is one is label printing preparation station and one is printed label station. So the DOMC staff uploads virtual samples in different batches underneath this subdivision. So currently you can only see one batch over here, and you again click on the gray arrow mark next to it, and you see these are the contents. And then in terms of the contents, it's basically different boxes that contain different types of virtual samples. So for example, for urine, each PID, each sample is aliquoted into 7 aliquots per PID. So for over here, you see that this is the first aliquot for this PID and this sample name. And so again, the sample name is same here. So you see the sample name is not changing. It's just the aliquot ID that is changing as we are selecting the samples on the right. This is 5th, 6th, 7th, and then this is again second PID aliquot 1. So the DOMC staff uploads all the samples in different boxes. And we have also listed over here what is the sample type. It's visit1, UR1 is the code abbreviated version, and the PIDs 1 to 50 are in this box. And then there's also 7 aliquots per PID. All right, so here are all the samples for this study and this symptomatic arm and this clinic the DOMC staff have uploaded. And once the site staff prints these labels, they will move it from the label printing preparation batch 1 to here, which is printed label section for the study. I'm gonna move the cursor to the left. And the content of this is batch one. So basically, like if let's say the site staff prints nasal cells 2, they're going to hold it, drag and drop it in here. Okay. And then click OK. But I'm just going to close it because it's not printed yet. I'm also going to show you an example from the South Africa freezers who have printed the labels. So again, the DOMC staff had uploaded the labels within this, and once you click the gray arrow mark over here, which now disappeared, it shows that there's none of the boxes underneath this. Because they've all been moved to the printed label subdivision, as they have already printed all of these labels for batch one. All right, so that is the first movement of virtual samples on Freezer Pro. And then once the site staff, the biorepository lab team receives physical samples from the participants, what they would do is they would scan and move the samples from the printed label boxes over here to physical freezers. So in the case of South Africa, they will move the samples from here to Mr. Forgetful, Mr. Grumpy, or Mr. Mischief, like one of these physical freezers. And in the case of Uganda, the site staff will move the labels from the printed label subdivision of the label printing station to this physical freezers in their lab. So they won't be doing drag and drop for individual samples. They will be using a scan and move function. And I'm going to demonstrate how they will be moving samples from the label printing station to a different freezers and different box. So I'm going to do that by using these test samples. So I'm going to open another box, and I will be moving samples from here, these 3 samples, to this box over here. So what you're going to do is I'm gonna first copy the barcode. There are 2 ways of moving the samples. One is you choose the well where you would like to move the sample to, right click on it, click on scan and move, and use a handheld scanner to scan the QR code printed on the labels. So that's going to be scanned, and the barcode will appear over here, and hit the enter button on your keyboard. If you just close it without hitting the enter button, this sample won't be moved. So you need to right click, scan and move, use the handheld scanner to scan the barcode or the QR code on the labels, hit enter, and you see the sample has been moved here, and then hit the close button. Another thing that you can do is, for example, if you don't have handheld scanner or if it isn't working, you can use another method to move the samples from different boxes. So for example, if I want to move this sample, you can just basically highlight the barcode over here, which is 7-digit number, and hit Control C on your keyboard, which is command for copying this. Go to the box where you would like to move, highlight the wells by left clicking on it, wherever you want to move the sample to, right click, scan and move, and then enter Control V. So you have to press Control V on your keyboard, and then press enter key on your keyboard, and that's how you can also move the samples. And you will, as you saw just now, that you will get an, I think, Freezer Pro okay, some sort of indication saying that the sample has been moved. So one more thing I would like to point out over here, that these 2 samples we just moved over here, but they're still appearing over here. The reason for that is that this box was already open and the Freezer Pro doesn't refresh the boxes on its own if it is open. So what you have to do is you can hit this button, which is reload box button, and you see that once you reload the box, this one disappears. And I'm gonna also, you don't have to do this. You don't have to go to a box to and then hit reload for it to move. It moves automatically. It just doesn't show on an empty, already open box that it has moved. So I'm gonna right click here, scan, move, and then move another sample type, and then hit enter. So as you can see that I've moved the third one to this box as well, but it's still showing over here. Let's say if I don't hit the reload button, I just close this, right? So if you just log out of the Freezer Pro, close it without hitting the reload, and open that box again, it doesn't show over here because it has been moved. And you will know it's moved because you'll get a little bit of indication from Freezer Pro that it has been moved. All right. So this is one of the issue with Freezer Pro. Sometimes when you're trying to, click on a sample type, it just basically, even though I'm not trying to drag it, but it seems like as if I'm dragging it and I'm trying to move it to another location. So what you can do in that case is just, hit refresh and that will be gone. So again, going back to the previous settings are not lost if you do that. It just helps you move the sample. So we just learned how to move sample from one box to another box. You can also move sample within one box by just dragging and dropping. So for example, if I want to drag and drop or move this sample to, let's say, this well, I would just left click on this sample, drag it to here. You see that on the top left of the sample, which I'm trying to drag, there is a tick mark that indicates that this move will occur. It's a plausible move. If I move it to here, see, it is giving me a circle with a dash in it that indicates that this move won't be successful to go outside it. You cannot move it to a different box basically. So that's how you move the sample. So I'm gonna try to drag and drop the sample here. So you can see that the sample will be moved and this will be real time. Unlike when you tried to move the sample across boxes where you had to hit reload. So this is how you move samples from one box to another, and you would be doing that for different samples once you receive physical samples for different participants for different studies. So you'll have pre-printed labels, you'll apply to the tubes, and then you will write in the source document the barcode, or if you have already printed the labels for barcodes, you'll put that in the source document, and then scan and move the samples from one box, from the freezer or printed label station to actual freezer. All right, so we covered that. And once you move the samples, what you would do is you would need to complete the database, right? So initially I had shown you that the information that you will, that the DOMC staff will complete will be just the name of the sample, PID, and aliquot ID. All of the other places, all of the other variables, the user-defined fields will not have any information on it. And also the volume initially that you will receive will be 0. Right, so this is how you would receive the sample when you scan and move the sample. This is how you would get the database. So what you would need to do is click on this blue 0.00 ml blue writing, and then update the volume to the volume of the sample or aliquot, each aliquot or each tube that is stored. The volume needs to be updated. So I'll put 1.8. The unit over here is predefined. So let's say if you need 200 microliters, you will have to convert that to milliliters, and that will be 0.2 milliliters if it's 200 microliters. So that's what you would put over here. And then you would double click on the sample and you would enter the initial volume, right? In this case, you can write 200 microliters as well, because there is an option of choosing a unit, but I would suggest to use the same unit as it's listed on top. So it would be 0.2 milliliters. And then for the freeze date, as I described earlier, you would hit on this calendar looking icon, and then you will choose the date, or you can hit today as well. For the freeze date stored by, you'll write a 2-letter initial. So that here, my name is Kiran Arora. So that would be I'll write K, that's the first letter of my first name, and then first letter of my last name. And comments is an optional field. If you have any comments for this particular sample, you can write over here. Otherwise, it's fine. So the mandatory fields are these, and then you would hit save. And then another mandatory field that you'll have to update yourself is volume. Okay, so just keep in mind that you are looking at what sample you're trying to store. So this information will be printed on the labels. And then the sample name will be also printed on the labels. All right, so this is how you update the database once you receive samples from the lab. Sorry, from the clinic staff. And then lastly, what we were going to cover today is how to add new samples in the database for the ones for which we are not pre-printing labels. So for the NTM or NTB isolates for FEND and non-FEND studies, you will be adding the samples on your own as you receive it from the clinic team, and you will also be printing the labels in real time. So if I want to add a sample type over here, so I'll click on the empty well, and then I will choose MTB isolate or whatever sample I want to have. So it's MTB isolate or NTB isolate for NOD. So the ones that I went over in the beginning, you'll choose from here. So I'll click here, and this information will also be in the sample requisition form. You will add the name, and this name will also be given to you in the sample requisition form. So that will be the PID, and this is for adult FEND. So it starts with 3 dash, and based on the clinic, it's either UK or UR in Uganda, and then I think it's a ZN for South Africa. But let's go to the UK, Kasinia side in Uganda, and then dash 1001. So this is, let's say, for the first participant, and then dash name of the sample. So the name, please look at the SOP for the naming naming structure. So we're going to have 2 LJs. So it'll be LJ 1 day 1 or LJ day 2 of MTB, right? All uppercase. So this is LJ day 2 MTB. And then also if it is coming, the isolate is coming from the midget culture, it'll be MG day 1 or day 2 for MTB. Okay. But please refer to the the sample requisition form as well as the SOP for details regarding how to name the different MTB isolate samples. Again, they are not aliquoted. If they are aliquoted, you will see aliquot ID over here as well. And then if it is aliquoted, you'll just put a -1 or -2 to identify the different aliquot. But that would be over here a user-defined field. But in this case, it's not aliquoted. You'll enter the volume, right? So it'll be 1.8 ml, for example. PID, which is just first part of the names, you'll put that here. Initial volume, it's 1.8. Unit for initial volume is milliliter. Freeze date today. Oops. Today. Stored by, you'll write your initials. I'm actually gonna put test 1, 2, 3. I want to just avoid any confusion. But you would write what I wrote before. And then if I have any comments, I'll add that and then just click on this add button. So this is how you add a sample type. And once you add samples, you would have to print it. So select the sample for which you would like to print the labels for, and then hit this print barcode. And then because it's MTB isolate for FEND adult TB, I will choose the right template, which is this in this case. So click over here and okay. And then it takes you to this window where there's QR code, sample name, and then sample type and study name. Right click, print, select the printer. And just check the number of sheets that you're printing and then hit print, and it'll print the label that you can apply to the tube that you received. And then store it in the -80 freezers. And lastly, I would like to also mention what you need to do after moving the samples from the label printing station to adequate boxes. You will have to go back to the label printing station, so the printed label section of the label printing station, and you'll have to delete any unused aliquots, right? So for example, over here for urine day 1, we have 5 aliquots. For urine day 2, we have 5 aliquots for PID, right? The total for FEND adult, we are only storing 7 samples for PID, and we are hoping to have 5 aliquots on day 1 and 2 aliquots on day 2. And but if, for example, on first day you're only able to store 2 aliquots, then second day you'll have 5. So that's how it will work. So maximum per day you can have 5 aliquots. So what will happen is you'll have a surplus of 3 aliquots for which you have printed the labels, but you won't be actually using that. You won't be using those labels and those virtual samples. So for example, if we take the ideal case scenario that day 1 you received 5 aliquots for a PID, and day 2 you received 2. Let's say for the first participant, so you received 2. So this is the third aliquot of first participant for urine sample day 2. You will have to delete this, and then I'm going to hit the shift button to select the other aliquots as well. So first you'll have to check. So this is, same first participant aliquot 3. This is first participant aliquot 4. This is first participant aliquot 5, right? So you'll identify the correct aliquots. So you would first notice that these 2 would have been moved from here to the other boxes. So these 2 will be empty. And then for these 2, you will hit the shift button as I've described in the label printing video as how to select multiple samples, and then you would just left click on the samples you want to select, and then right click and delete samples. And then you can write, you'll have to write comment over here that aliquots not used, right? And then and put your initials, right? I will be looking into this when I'm looking at the logging, audit log over here, just to make sure that no sample that we were going to use is accidentally deleted. In this, and then you would hit the yes button, but I'm going to click no because we don't want to delete right now. So you'll have to delete any unused samples. So this is one scenario where you will have unused aliquots. Another scenario where you can have unused sample for entire PID is if we have screen failures. So in REDCap, PID is assigned when you before conducting the screening on REDCap. And after the screening CRF is completed, the clinician can identify some participants as not eligible for the study, and they will be screen failures. And let's say the first participant is enrolled in the study. The second one is after conducting the screening, clinician found out that either the participant doesn't meet this study criteria or is unable to come for subsequent visit and therefore is deemed ineligible to participate in the study, then you would not receive samples for those participants, right? So what you would have to do in that case is, let's say participant 2 is a screen failure, you will have to delete all the aliquots and samples for that particular participant for each of the sample types. So let's say participant 2 is a screen failure. You'll first go and check what aliquots are pertaining to the second participant. So that would be from 6 to 10, and you'll have to check individually. So 6 is for PID 002. Second, again, 7th one over here is for 002. 8th one is for 002, 9th one is for 002, and 10th one is also for 002. You have to check the PID. And then again, hit the shift button and select the multiple aliquots over here, right click, delete samples, and in the log, you would write screen failure. So these are samples for screen failure PID, and then underscore, you put your name, the initials, and then click yes. In this case, I'm gonna click no because we don't want to delete these samples right now. So that's another scenario. Third scenario would be if a participant discontinues studies after let's say visit 1. So for FEND, I think all the adult FEND, all the samples will be collected on first visit. But for NOD, we are collecting samples on week 2 as well. And if for whatever reason participants, comes for visit for week 1, but doesn't come for week 2 visit, you would not be receiving the samples for second visit. So in that case, you would have to go to the boxes. A good thing is the way that we have listed the samples, you will be able to identify which samples are collected on visit 2. So week 2, so over here, urine 1 and urine 2 samples are collected on visit 1, and urine 3 sample is collected on visit 2. So let's say if a participant discontinue enrollment in the study after visit 1, you will be coming to this place and deleting the samples that are not going to be used. Okay, so all the samples that are used in the end, like at the end of the study, you should not have any samples in the label printing station, right? It would be in the printed label section. So you won't have any samples in the label printing station. You will only have samples over here. And just remember, it's very, very crucial to update the volume information over here and update the database once you moved the sample to the adequate freezer out of the label printing preparation station. All right, so let me know if you have any questions, and thank you so much. Bye.